Hello everyone. Today we'll start with Python control statements, and in any programming language control statements play a very vital role. We use different type of control statements in order to make our program more effective and efficient, and Python also provides us these control statements to perform different tasks. So when we talk about control flow means every code which you write, the statements or expressions written in it are executed in a sequential manner, which means they will be executed from top to bottom or from start to end. Now, if I am using a control statement, these control or regulate the flow of execution of code based on various type of constructs. For example, these constructs can be condition statements, loops, function calls, and when we use them, they help us to write a code which is way more efficient as compared to the one which has sequential execution. So, if I want to have a code in which we can perform some decisions, we can perform some iterations or repetition of statements, we use control statements. And these provide functionality to control the execution of instructions in in a way such that we can decide which instructions we need to execute and for how much number of time. So Python provides the following types of control statements. They are decision making, which comprises of if and its various forms, loops like while and for, to change the flow of execution within the loops, we can use break and continue. And then we have one which is called placeholder, known as pass. So let us see how we can work with these statements one by one. Now, what is if a statement? They are a group of statements which helps us to perform decision making. For example, let's say if I'll write the syntax for if goes like this. We'll write if followed by condition followed by colon sign. Then we will provide group of statements which will execute when condition holds true. Now, when we are using conditional statements, control statements, it is necessary to give appropriate indentation. Indentation means the space which the block will take with respect to the given control statement. Now, whenever we will put a colon, the language translator checks for whether there is an indented block available or not. If no indentation is given, then it will raise an error. So if I be using if condition, it goes like this. Let's say there is a number which is 10 and my condition is if number is greater than 0, I want to perform something. So this will work, this code will work when the condition is true, and if the condition is false, the code will move or the control will move outside the if body. So let us see how we can write this. Now, for example, I have a number which is 10 and I want to check if n is less than equals to 10 colon. Now my IDE will automatically indent my code for me. So I'll write print n. And this is something which I want to print when I am not inside the if body. So when I'll execute this code, it says 10 and out. This 10 is printed because my condition is true. And once the condition is true, I'll move out of my if body and then the statement says out. So it will print both 10 and out. Now see, the statements which are inside if must be indented at the same level. The statements which are in the same level, they will be performed in one style. For example, if I'll write print inside. Now if I'll execute, it will write 10 inside out. Now if I'll indent this also, it will print all three of them. And if I'll print this, I'll change the value, and then I'll run this code. It will say only out. So this block will only work when my condition holds true. Otherwise, all these statements will be printed if the condition is true. If the condition is false, only the statement which is outside the if block will be executed. Now, if also contains else. Else means for this case, the program or the code we just had written, we only check for the true part of the condition. Now, if I want to check whether the condition is false or not, and I want to do something if the condition is false, then I can use if else block. Now, for if else, I'll write if condition followed by the statements, then else. Now, if and else need to be at the same level of indentation. After else also we need to provide colon sign, then the group of statements which we want to execute. So if I'll change this code like this, else colon print now if I'll run this code, it will print else block out. Means the condition holds false, so my control moves to the else block and it will print the statement which I had given in the else block, and after that it will move out of the if else body. So we can use if else block to check whether a condition is true or false. Then we have if elif statement. For example, I have multiple conditions which I need to test. Now if I'm using if else, it can only test for one condition, but if I want to check for multiple conditions, I can use if elif else statement. So how this works, now let's say if I want to I have two numbers, a equals to 10, b equals to 20, let's say three numbers, and c equals to 15, and I want to check which number is the largest. So if I'll write if a greater than b and a greater than c, colon print largest a, elif b greater than a and b greater than c, print largest b. And if both the conditions are false, then it's obvious that c is the largest one. So I'll write print largest c. Now when I run this code, it will say largest is 20. As you can see, b is the largest. So first it will check a is greater than b. Because it is false here, it will go to the elif block. Now b is greater than a, it is true. b is greater than c, it is true. So it will print largest of value. Now this is how if elif statement can be used. We can avoid else also. Else is not compulsory. Else is an optional statement in if block. So if I want to check multiple conditions, I can use if elif block. Now the next one is nested ifs, which can work for multiple conditions. But the main reason is using if else condition in nested if is that we want that one if condition is executed based on the other one. So for example, if I want to check if a is greater than 10, then if I want to check if a equals to 11, print yes, else print no. So when I'll execute this code, it will display nothing. Now let me change the value of a over here. If I'll write a equals to 11, when I'll execute this, it will say a equals to 11, the condition holds true. Because a is equal to 11, it says yes. Now let me change the value of a as 12. When I'll run this code, it will say no, because a is not equal to 11. So this is how we can use nested if else in Python. Now the next one is while loop. Now when we want to have a block of a statement which we want to repeat or which we want to execute repeatedly based on certain conditions, we can use while loop in Python. For example, let's say I want to print my a string 10 times. Now how the syntax goes, while. Now I need to first initialize a value from where I want to start my loop. So let's say I want to print 5 values or 5 strings. I'll write while I equals to 1. This is my initial value. Now I want to run my loop for 5 times. I less than equals to 5 means I have to run loop from 1 to 5. Now if I'll write print hello, and because I is 1, I need to increase the value of I by 1. Now this I plus equal to 1 is equal to I is equivalent to I equals to I plus 1. So when we will execute this code, it will print I 5 times. Now how this works, for the very first time I is 1, the condition holds true, it will print hello. Now after this I becomes 2, again the condition holds true, it will print hello. So hello will be printed 5 times, I will become 6. Now for 6 the condition holds false, so it will move out of the loop body. Let's say if I'll write here print out of loop and I'll execute this, it will print hello, and then at the 6th line it will print out of loop. So while repeatedly executes statements or group of statements based on certain conditions. Now the prerequisite for using while loop is we need to have an initial value from where we want to start the loop. We need to give a condition based on which we want the repetition to be performed, and then we need to initialize or reinitialize the value. So this is the initialization statement. This is my condition, and this is where I reinitialize. Now reinitialization means I want to change the value so that I can reach to the point where my condition will fail. This is how we can run while loop in Python. Now while loop can also have else block which will be executed when the condition is false. For example, this. When I'll execute this, it will say the same thing out of loop, but this is executed because my condition holds false. If I'll write here print by, this will also print by here. So this is how while can be used along with else block. Else will execute when condition fails. Let's say for example, if I'll write 10 here and I'll execute the code, it will say out of loop by. Reason is for the very first time my condition failed, so I directly the control been moved to the else block. It will print out of loop and then it will print by. So this is how we can use while loop in Python. Now we have another loop which is called Python for loop, and it can be used to iterate over iterators or a range. Iterator means we have sequence or we have elements which are in a given order. Now let's say if I am working with list or tuples or strings, we can use Python for loop. And how it works, we'll specify for iterator variable in sequence and then the group of statements. For example, let's say I have a string and I want to display all the characters for this string one by one. So I'll write for x in s, print x. Now when I'll run this code, it will display the characters of this string one by one. So how it works, it starts from the 0th index of my string, that is S0 by default, and it will run till the length of the given string. We need not have to specify the length or anything else when we are using for loop. So x will have the value from each index one by one for every iteration, and then I can process this x. So I printed this value, it will print like this. Now, apart from strings, I can work on, say, list. I can work on ranges. I can work on tuples. All the iterators can be used along with for loops. Now, in our next session, we will be discussing about some of the variations we can have in for loop. We'll learn how we can work on range, and we will also learn how we can use flow control statements like break, pass, and continue in Python. Thank you.